Hi, boys and girls. We're outside today. We are going to learn about worms at work. Now, we're in my garden today. We have to prepare my garden. Now, get it ready, plant some seeds, plant some plants. There's something important in my garden that we actually want around all the time. It's a certain type of worm. You guys actually find them on the playground all the time. Where are you? They like moist dirt and soil. You usually find a lot more, especially after, oh, there's one. Especially after it rains. They are called earthworms. So if you haven't found one yet, you could go out, dig one in your garden. You can find them under rocks, find them under soil, under things that still are moist. They prefer moist soil. Look at, he's going under that leaf for some comfort, for some protection. It's beautiful. I happen to really like earthworms. And we're going to find out today why earthworms, this type of worm, is important, and whether they like moist or wet surfaces or dry surfaces better, and what's better for them. Wiggling worms at work. We're going to find out why these earthworms are just so important, and why I like to have them in my garden, why other people do too. Someone's boot. You have some worm tunnels underground. Down in the ground, under your feet, thousands of worms wiggle around flower bulbs and tunnel under trees. They twist and turn, eating almost anything in their way. These wiggling worms are at work. Farmers plow through fields to loosen the soil. Crumbly soil lets the roots of plants spread out and grow. Worms also loosen the soil as they wiggle along. They are called nature's plows. As worms twist and turn, they push aside loose soil. This creates tunnels. Air flows along these tunnels. Rainwater trickles down. Roots drink it up. Moist ground helps plants grow better. Ooh. So we found out a few things so far about why these worms are so important. Worms tunnel in hard-packed soil by swallowing it. The soil goes in the worm's mouth, slides into the crop, then passes down into the gizzard. Worms do not have teeth. Mussels, fine grains of sand, and small stones in the gizzard grind the soil. Worms digest leaf and plant bits that are found in the soil, just as you digest a salad. What's left passes through a worm's body and comes out of its tail end in the form of pellets, called worm castings. These castings make good plant food. It's actually their poop. They help fruits and vegetables grow bigger and better. It's like fertilizer for the plants that help everything grow. Sometimes worms crawl above ground. When they tunnel back down into the ground, they pull dead leaves and plants down with them. These plants make the soil better as they rot. Seeds come down too. Some of these seeds send out roots. Seedlings sprout Worms help new plants begin to grow. Wow, they do so much. It's amazing. Oh, look at that. Worms can wiggle, twist, turn, and even tie themselves in knots because they have no backbones. Their soft bodies are made up of rings or segments. These segments act like the coils on a slinky toy. They let a worm bend. A worm has no legs, but 8 bristles under each segment act like legs. They help a worm move. Strong muscles allow the worm to stretch out its front end. It becomes long and thin. Then the worm fastens its front bristles to the soil. The back end slinks up, making the worm short and fat. How amazing. It's a birdie. We know birdies like to eat those worms, huh? The worm wiggles along, stretching and slinking, stretching and slinking. With all its wiggling, twisting, and turning, it's a wonder a worm knows where it's headed. It has no eyes, no nose, no ears, and hardly any brain at all. But a worm knows what's happening nearby. It feels vibrations on the ground and senses a hungry robin. Quickly, the worm slips back into its burrow, hiding in the only way it can protect itself from its enemies. It's the only way it can protect itself. Worms also hide from the sun. They must live in damp soil, since they breathe air through their moist skin. In the hot sun, their skins dry up, and they can't breathe. Maybe we just answered some of the questions we asked in the beginning. Sometimes worms crawl to the surface to find food. They select dead and decaying plants to drag back into their burrows. These plants contain bacteria that worms eat. Healthy plants do not. Worms pick leaves with pointed ends rather than round ones. No one knows why. Worms also eat fungi and mold. They slurp the hair-like strands of mold the same way you might slurp up strands of spaghetti. Worms eat at the entrance of their burrows. Then each worm covers any leftover plants with its castings. This pile of worm castings is called a midden. It hides the top of the worm's burrow and acts like a door to keep out bad weather and rain. In spring, before the weather warms, worms wiggle to the surface to mate. They have cocoons that they form. They have baby worms come out of the cocoon. They're called wormlets, and the baby worms come to the surface and start the things that the big worms do. Baby worms grow fast. In 6 weeks, they are adult worms. Wow, they grow up fast, fast, fast. In winter, the soil near the surface freezes. The worms plug up their tunnels and move down to warmer soil. They stay there until spring. Then they wiggle up, tunneling, twisting, and turning until they're right under your feet again. Vegetables and flowers grow better. Trees grow better, grass grows greener, because there are thousands of wiggling worms at work. We just learned this is because they make tunnels and spaces for the roots of plants to grow. They fertilize the plants. They bring seeds down under the soil. They make air pathways for the roots to breathe. How cool worms are. And how cool their skin is. Now, let's do our experiment. So we found out some really important things about worms, earthworms, and why they are so important. Right? They're always hard at work. They help plants grow. They help the fruit and vegetables that we eat, those plants, by loosening the soil, making air pockets, and fertilizing that ground underneath by their castings or their poop, and tunneling the soil. And they just do so much. Now, let's find out a characteristic that we actually already read about, but we're going to see it happen in real life. Do they like to be in moist environments, or do they like to be in dry environments? Let's find out. Okay, I have my worms here on the leaves. And I have my wet paper towel here, dry paper towel here. Now, from reading the book and finding the worms in moist soil, I think we already know the answer to this question. If worms like moist environments better than dry environments. So we're going to take two earthworms, and put them on the wet paper towel. I'm going to take two and put them on the dry paper towel. Now the ones on the wet paper towel are moving. The ones on the dry paper towel, one is moving. We're directly in the sun, and worms don't really care to be directly in the sun either. But from reading the book, and I feel bad for these guys. Worms like to be wet, and they move around best when they're wet because they breathe through their skin, and it makes them glide around easier. But they can drown, so we don't want to put too much. But definitely worms. See how much better he's moving now with the really wet paper towel. And these guys are comfy here. This one, let me see. Jamie, is there another worm in there, honey?
Wait.
Oh, there's one.
I was going to pick that up.
And they like their leaves because it gives them shade. They move around really well on moist leaves. You know, under a pile of leaves, the sun doesn't dry up the water so quickly when it rains and everything else. So the answer to our experiment, and you could try this at home, but please make sure you put the worms back in their homes where you found them, is that they like moist, wet soil, dirt environments better than dry. And they do not like to be directly in the sun, so I'm going to go put them back now. Hi, boys and girls. Now, what I'd really love for you to do is get some paper, get some crayons or markers, and I want you to draw what you observed today. Did you observe a really wiggly worm on a wet paper towel? Did you like the worms on the leaves the best? Did you like them in the book, making a tunnel? I would love for you to draw a picture of your favorite part of this lesson. And I would love for your mom or dad or whoever's with you to send it in to me either by email or text and show me what your favorite part was and tell me what you learned. And I will see you tomorrow. I had fun with the worms. I love worms. And I can't wait to get back to school and find them on the playground with you. Have fun and, watch them tunnel today. Take two and measure them on a piece of paper. See which one is bigger. And use your words and describe the words to me. and let me know all about the worms you find. Have fun and have a great day. This is how Jameson and Natalia find worms fast without having to dig themselves.